And I want to repeat, the government is keen to compensate those who have title deeds to the land they own in Mau. At the same time, those small settlers who are very poor and have no means of making a living will not be left unassisted. The same members of parliament would go to a public rally to begin to call the Prime Minister words. That's why I said that, Mr. Speaker, these members of parliament were engaged in populist, cheap populist politics.
Mr. Speaker, we don't want the Prime Minister to impute improper motives on our part. We are elected to represent our constituents. And we are going to do just that, Mr. Speaker.
Whether your point is made.
Yes.
Some people do not have the knowledge to understand the consequences of what they are doing. They will be logging. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, they need to be taught.
I think the Prime Minister, it is important for you to respect the members of Parliament of Rift Valley, because we were elected to discuss issues that are affecting our people. And if there is anything that is burning, I think we have an obligation to air it out.
If your life politically is going to be hard, it is not going to be because of Mao, it will be because of something else.
I will not be intimidated. Speaker, I will not be blackmailed, Mr. Speaker, because what I'm doing, I know I'm doing it in the interest and the best interest of this nation, Mr. Speaker. And I say that I'm prepared to pay the political price, Mr. Speaker.
When will the government act? We do not want any tax false report brought in this house. We want to hear government has acted.
From our archives there, the museum, Raila Odinga in Parliament then, I can't exactly remember. This was it was a Prime Minister then. That was in 2010 there, 2011, when we had this particular first debate.
Maybe around mid or late 2009. It was about Mao.
It was about Mao.
You see, Mao, as a critical water tower, then and now, what happens in the Mao and the protection of Mao, the sustainer, many rivers come from that water tower, and the issue was how to restore it. A lot of people, a lot of resources, both from Kenya government, from other partners, for the restoration of Mao. But obviously, because part of the destruction of Mao is about human settlement, it was a political hot potato.
I see this was a water.
This is what cost Raila the election in 2013. Indeed. Because he lost his support base in Rift Valley because of the Mao eviction of the Mao people who are living in Mao forest. And you remember his famous statement was made that same day that, look, I can go and make mandazis in Kibera, sina shida. People must leave Mao.
That was his Waterloo.
Well, look, but to say Waterloo, I wonder if that's the way we should look at it. This very week we were in a conference about debt, and the question was asked: is it really practical to reduce government expenditure? And I'm of the view it is, including if you have to retrench people. And I gave the case of Laikipia and the work I did there to retrench. So somebody then commented, well, maybe that's why you lost the ensuing election. But what is the point of a leader if you cannot do what is correct and right, and all you do is pander to political whims? So I would not call it his Waterloo. That is a serious leader doing the correct thing in the face of significant political consequence. That is the mark of a serious leader, not people who will only, blow with the way the wind is going. Otherwise then the nation can never move forward. Yeah.
Indeed. All right, unless you want to chime in a little bit, it's just
no, I wanted
you wanted to hear from Bunyasi Sako.
Yes,
you may remember the moment.
About this.
Bunyasi Sako, where were you then?
I think he was still in the World Bank.
No. I was very much around, and those were good times in one respect, that these are real issues that were being discussed at the time. Issues in the environment are normally are on the periphery in people's thinking. That was right, out of this importance, it was right at the center. But in terms of its implementation, you are damned if you did and you're damned if you didn't.
I thought I was yielding for Ababu to hear from the crowd, the horse's mouth.
That
the rest
environment first. Environment first.
Yeah,
We'll come to sports.
I think rather environment. So I thought that was very interesting. And then there is, I don't know if there's a reshuffle or how did that happen? And they bring the matter to the also the Prime Minister, I think it was, the Mao issue. And because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you didn't, they knew that would bring him out. And I think it was very difficult because the choices were clear. He was probably on the right side, both of the event and of history. But the politics of it was one to at least temporarily sink somebody. So it wasn't easy.
The prevailing international environment at that time, because if you recall, a lot of resources raised via UNEP and other global bodies in support of the Mao. And there was another strong sentiment that, perhaps the Prime Minister that the PNU side of the Grand Coalition was less trusted with this issue. So it was, but yes, you are damned if you did and damned if you didn't. Still, it was better to do for posterity of Kenya and the Nile and all the rivers that come out of Mau and the future generations.
Thank you.
That was the right call.
But before maybe you get out, I think it's important for us to, the indications are that it will rain heavy from October to December. And we have this prior information that is going to do that. I hope that, and I keep saying hope is not a strategy, I hope we have a strategy to do without floods. And it's an asset if we can harvest it. The indications are that it will be heavy. And this is a time to prepare ourselves. Oops.
No,
we really do that when we are here ourselves.
All right, thank you
when you do that.
They've warned that El Nino will be with us, so water harvesting should actually be in the pipeline to make sure that
it's something we should prepare for that, actually.
The problem,
it's important.
The problem is it's very difficult to do storage within the zone where you have excess rainfall. You can have some, but they'll be flooded. The rainfall is such that you'll fill up all those little places. I think we just need major dams, perhaps off-take from some of the rivers. So we still have flood, there'll be some damage.
We sort of control the dams.
Yes, but then we have stored some water. Significant investments, yes.
Okay. Before we buckle down to some business, let's just have the soapbox so that we can actually also just feel the tone and tenor of the politics of the day and how it went down, especially with the talks. It's up next.
Having that conversation with the global CEO of TikTok so that we can agree on a mechanism to moderate content in their space so that we can reduce the content that is negative and leverage on the monetization that is benefiting a lot more people. The Permanent Presidential Commission, Music Commission, we are now going to change it to the Creative Commission of Kenya. We are already working on a creative bill that is going to make sure that the Creative Commission will not only have professional studios in Nairobi, but in every county. One of the best paying content creator is now at 7 million shillings every month. KICD, I am looking forward to you reporting to me how much money you have made from all this content. In the near future, we will not be looking for money from the exchequer to host this great talent. It should be able to run itself.
He is okay to appear before the committees, relevant committees, but he has a problem with being oversighted by plenary. Neither the leader of majority nor any member of parliament is here serving at the whim of any cabinet secretary. We are here as a people's representatives to oversight.
This house can choose to transact its business in the manner it deems fit. It is not for anybody else to direct it how to go about transacting its business, including the business of inviting people. We did not give them the privilege to walk into this house. They must know they are strangers. Right now, they are strangers. And at best, they can only be witnesses, whom we summon from time to time in our own wisdom.
I found this letter rather condescending to the institution of parliament. And when a minister says that we are raising issues on hearsay,
about hearsays, and say that what we are doing here, we are purporting to do the things that we are doing here. We are purporting. And to allow this witness to write to the speaker, where is even the protocol of writing to the speakers of the houses?
Once the chair has given direction on the matter, no minister has any right to give value judgment on that direction. Minister, you will be required to rescind in totality the content of that letter, tender an apology to the House.
May I therefore, with a lot of respect, withdraw that correspondence.
I want the minister to share the list of the Kenyan delegation who are purported to be the cheering squad.
I am not aware of any joyriders being part of any official delegation accompanying any Kenyan team to any event.
Will this House be in order to demand that the CS Honorable Ababu resigns because he has painted this country in a very negative manner?
There is absolutely no sufficient ground that would cause my resignation because I believe I am performing exemplary well.
Our priority for discussion is the escalating cost of living.
We are already implementing the programs that will deal with the cost of living.
Nothing will come out of those talks. Is a waste of time. I am telling you as Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Alitaka ati handshake tukamwambia hakuna. Asema apatiwe ambassador 3 tukamwambia hakuna. Tukasema ukitaka pesa kidogo ya kukula we can discuss.
Tumewapatia wale jamaa wa siku 30 kuongea. Baada ya siku 30 kama jamaa bado wamekaa ngumu, tutatoa amri nyingine.
Kwa sababu kuna majamaa bado wanatuzungusha ati wanatafuta kazi. Ati wanatuzungusha ati tuongee. Ati ndio kazi ipotekane sijui wapi. Ati kazi ya nani? Ati kazi ya nani? Ati nusu mkate sijui nini. Mimi nataka niwaulize nyinyi. Mnataka hii mambo ya tuendelee na mambo ya nusu mkate sijui na sijui nini? Bana, hiyo watu nimeambia wakwende kabisa.
We have participated fully with SRC to ensure the normal review and increment for all public servants. Police officers are also not left out.
Leo tukitoka hapa, we are going to implement this. We shall be running the payroll today. Na tungependa kuhakikishia maofisa wetu, we are going to burn midnight oil so that we run the payroll, and by the end of this week, by Friday, they have their salaries in the banks.
We have remained clear, together with the commissioners, that our mission, our focus is the police officers and the best we can get.
Kwa kila police officer, hizo ndilo jambo muhimu sana. Kuhakikisha kuna utulivu, wananchi wanaweza tembea bila kusumbuliwa, kufanya biashara. Alafu tunazungumza mambo ya mshahara ya malipo bandaye. Police work is a calling.
All right, the soapbox just bringing up issues that are informing the political tone and tenor of the day as well. Let's just begin with the Azimio bit, where we have the inclusion of the high cost of living. This is what you were really gagging for, and finally, as I mentioned earlier, that has shaken into place. I hope something will come out of it, despite the fact that we can see the Deputy President also saying these talks will not go anywhere. So this is a talks to nowhere.
Well, as my view currently is that Azimio should just withdraw. Let us go. Yes, we should just get out of it. There's no point of wasting each other's time. We should go back to the street. Let the people decide, so to speak. The cost of living is not an Azimio issue. The cost of living is a national issue. And you are seeing it playing out in the financial markets. You are seeing it playing out in the way in government finances. Yeah, because you see, when the economy is hurting, you may not be able to collect the taxes that you think. When the economy is hurting and you have a big deficit to finance, then you're trying to borrow huge sums of money. The market demands a gigantic premium. All of those things are playing out. You saw the other week a debate as to whether it is a fuel subsidy or it's price stabilization. Call it what you will, but the fact of the matter is that fuel costs are out of hand, and you screaming or calling it price stabilization or whatever they would prefer. You saw that the government had to take certain action of reimbursing oil traders, that on the back of the already rubbished scheme, so-called government to government, that really was a money-making venture for a few individuals. So if the government side is not interested in these discussions, I mean, that's fine. Let Kenyans decide. And I want to remind government what happened in Sri Lanka last year. You can take your citizens for granted, but the citizens might very soon consign you, out of office in dustbins of history.
To obscurity.
So, absolutely.
Right.
So, okay. Let them bring it on. Let us go back to the street.
Okay, we can talk about the police salary as well. Professor Gituro Wanaina, briefly.
Yes. It's very interesting. I'm not sure what you went through all that you're showing us evidence.
That's the soapbox. It's just a
as a new kind of a shot. Yeah, there's a lot of lost energy. You just get confused. This one is saying this. This one is saying that, and I suppose in that mess we can get ourselves into doing the right thing. But I totally agree with the ritual. Surely we have given a process, an opportunity to go through an issue, and when we are commenting on it, and it's not just anybody commenting, it's not right. If I was seated there as somebody like Kalonzo or whoever, it's like, what am I being taken for? And maybe some level of respect. Let them go through. Really stop telling us that we know Rider came, it's a done deal, they have discussed. And it's important at times that I keep saying on this show, to give some respect for Kenya and teach them with some respect. Okay, hiyo tumefanya. It's the same stuff and it's rolling out bill. Every time I go to Naivasha, I go to Sokoni. When you pass there, of course you can't shop, they have a lot of issues there, cloudy. Munataka saitoti chukueni, mutakuwa na ugari jioni. Very humiliating and intimidating kind of statements. The teachers, the police officers, there's one thing I've always advocated for police officers. A police officer is a very interesting person. That's the person who works at night, that's the one who are looking for security. If you look, and the others, of course, but the responsibility he has in a country deserves more respect. And it's not just necessarily the salary. And I've argued this before. If you step where these three gentlemen spent a part of their life at Parliament, and you look the kind of vehicles they drive, of course there's another from the little, and you look at the police officer. Now, if you look at the opportunities that the members of Parliament have been given, why can't they talk about the same opportunities? For example, say the police officers, we are going to get you houses at a lower interest rate. We are going to give you opportunity even to buy a boda, so that when you work with somebody, it's something at the end of the day. Not necessarily the salary. We need to step back and look them from the kind of work they do for this country.
Thank you.
And let me just finish here. Once upon a time when I think I was in high school or university, I stayed with a police officer at Madare there. It's deplorable. Next to him is a family. You're here. So 1,000 to me is something we probably is not here nor there. But we could look at the areas like giving opportunity to borrow, to create wealth within themselves, than just the salary. And housing to me comes in your mind.
Thank you.
And those kind of things.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless you want to comment on that, we can actually go to the sugar sector now.
Okay. Yes.
We
could go forward. When I speak, I'll pick back half a minute.
All right. Now, the Kenya sugar subsector plays a vital role in the agricultural sector and the Kenyan economy. The industry contributes to food security, employment creation, regional development, and improved livelihoods for more than 8 million Kenyans. It is a source of income for over 400,000 small-scale farmers who supply over 90% of the meal cane. Currently, Kenya is comparatively a high-cost sugar producer, which is attributed to mainly to inefficiencies across the entire value chain. This is does not only renders the industry uncompetitive, but makes Kenya an attractive destination for imports from the region and, of course, globally. The imports from low-cost producers dampen sugar prices, creating financial constraints when the local mills cannot offload locally produced sugar to the market. The sugar subsector is facing unprecedented challenges which have drastically affected cane and sugar production. Key among them includes high cost of production, acute cane shortage, low productivity, inefficiencies across the value chain, weak regulatory framework, high indebtedness, weak extension support, low value addition initiatives, cyclic markets, uncontrolled and illegal sugar imports, poor governance, aging equipment, obsolete technology, and delayed payments to cane farmers, and the list goes on frustratingly longer and longer and longer. Now, the latest development that we've had from the cabinet is the fact that we have 5 millers now who are up for grabs for the privatization to actually take place. And we want just to delve deeper into this and ask critical questions, especially what is bedeviling this particular sector, looking at the previous reports that we've had that we can interrogate first of all. So we have Mumias Sugar, we have Sokoni Sugar, we have Moroni and Miwani, amongst others as well, which they are seeking, and Zoe as well. And Sokoni, that is seeking not to privatize. Let's just begin from there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Debal. I really needed just 2 seconds.
2 seconds.
Yeah, I agree entirely with Professor Gitura's analysis around the police housing. I think it's a matter of human rights. We need to set minimum standards, for both for pay and accommodation. I think we have looked aside for too long. Now, the sugar industry. There are many things happening in there, but let me comment on where the trend is going. Do you privatize? Do you not privatize? We have had models of entirely public, like Zoya, public and private, like Mumias, I think, and probably Sokoni, I'm not quite sure, but they haven't worked. I think that we should look at something else. I personally, although I used to push for that, I am against dropping in budget resources for revival of commercial enterprises. Any such money must go through the balance sheet, as it were. You must assess how they are spending the money, how this will help grow it, what the leakages would be, how you are going to plug those holes and so on. You just don't throw money at it and so on. I think attempting to throw money at it will not work. Two, you have to tame the excessive appetites, or sometimes the excessive appetites by us leaders, particularly local leaders, with vested interests in the place that frustrate processes of recovery. If you don't deal with this, we're just throwing good money after bad money. Thirdly, we need a realistic assessment of the opportunity cost. What else could be done with the land that is under cane or with the money that's going into sugar cane? But finally, to say, if we continue as we are doing, what does it do to household incomes? Given that set of resources, how are they faring? They're not faring very well. And I personally would like to see an analysis along these lines and a judgment that, yes, we are going to intervene, for example, but you, Mumias, or you, Mohoroni, or you, Sony, you have to do A, B, C, D. Let us not let employed managers, for example, frustrate an effort of revival. You pay them a salary, the people steal from it. You get leaders who are shouting about the need for revival, they steal from it and so on. We can't allow that to happen. But at the end of the day, the one who suffers is the smallholder farmer and other residents in the area.
All right. Bilokiro, we began here. We had also a report as well from, that was the task force on sugar led by the governor of Kisumu, who was by then the Senate. And I have the report here. We'll just go blow by blow. But I just wanted to get broad overview before we go there, because the parliamentary committee has recommended also the introduction of a 4% sugar development levy to bolster the cane development and revitalize the ailing sugar industry. But there are a lot of issues, if we go back, that are still have not been addressed. So many of them that we'll pick up alongside as we're having this particular conversation.
Yeah.
But let's just get a broad overview from your assessment, especially with the latest development that they seek to privatize these 5 millers.
Yeah, I think reading what the Treasury Secretary said, which was tabled, I think, in the House by the majority leader. Personally, I welcome that move.
You welcome it?
Because I think any attempt or effort to try and revive the sugar mills will address the livelihoods of over 2 million people who are dependent on those mills. And sugar is one of the saddest stories, really, because that whole area, you know, Nyanza Western, that's dependent on that. People are really frustrated because you can see private millers doing very well. But those public factories, you know, some of them really on prime land, and very suitable land like Mumias, doing very badly. And I because I have dealt with some of these sugar millers through professional relationship I've had with Mumias and Temelil, and I know how those companies used to perform in the 90s, doing extremely well.
Yes.
So I think this model of leasing that they have come up with now, moving away from fully privatizing, selling off, but leasing. When I try to understand that, I welcome that move, actually, because it would mean the land itself remains still a public land. Those nucleus estates and the land on which the mills are, and which is something of concern to the locals, because for them the issue is that those nucleus estates going out to some fellow who buys it, and then that's the end of the story. He can decide to sell the pieces of land and disappear. But I think keeping at least with terms very clear, I think a lot depends on how it will be implemented. But the idea itself, I think, is it's a good idea. And I like the gesture by the government to write off the entire debt, you know, running into hundreds of billions, including to KRA, to, you know,
117 billion shillings. Yeah.
Then there's also KRAs over 50 billion. The other institutions. But the most important one that I really appreciate is this reintroduction of the cane development levy. Let me tell you, from my experience in that sugar industry, because I've dealt with them a lot, including a lot of consultancy work when I was a young man, that sugar development levy is key to outgrowth. Let me tell you, it's one of the things that was encouraging farmers to you know, because in any of the activities we see in sugar, in coffee, in tea, this kind of thing helps. And the moment that thing was stopped, the capacity by the outgrowers and the local farmers to try and develop cane reduced substantially, let me tell you. And this started when that sugar development levy thing disappeared. So I think in my view, that revival is critical, but more importantly, I think I agree with one thing that you have said. The equipment, the mills that we have in those regions are pretty old, inefficient. The extraction efficiency of those machines is so low that the yield, it becomes unprofitable to anyone who tries to run it the way it is, unless you really invest. And that, I think, for me, is the most important thing. Any contract for leasing of these farms must be pinned on the ability of the lessor to invest in new mills. That is critical. Because we have had the same problem with Kenyan oil refineries. You remember when the petroleum refineries were leased to those that company from India, and many other Kenya Railways to Citadel from Egypt. Any of these companies, when you lease and there is no commitment to reinvest or investment into it, it doesn't add any value. What those guys will do is asset stripping, and after 5 years or 10 years, they just pull out, and you're back to where you are. Yeah,
it's an interesting point here you bring, and my mind goes into discussion of Kenya Airways. You know, every year we are building them, and Porter would tell you that business go up and down, but not continuously. Just shut it. It's not helping you at all, or give an alternative to deal with it. And therefore, when it comes to the sugar, we can't be this year in, year out. Give somebody who can perform. But the fundamental, and then was very broad, the fundamental is the farmers must be cautious. The whole thing is about the household level. If they can't get it, they can't be paid. When you are reading, it was like all negatives about it. And I don't see anything wrong. I'd push for something at the university, because they all tend to follow the same kind of pattern. And the late Chris, God rest his soul, and the teacher myself, we are the NOFO. And we were telling Bithi, who graciously was thrown out of the University of Nairobi, you have a lot of land, worth almost 30 billion. So why are you getting all this? Why are you complaining there's no money? 10 acres at 10 acres at Lironi, facing the Moon Golf Club. Do a conference facility. Nice technology. You have the land, be able to bring the funds and go into partnerships. At the end of the month, go for your check. Don't manage that. Don't manage. Give it to this hotel, Heritage, whatever the case might be. At the end of the month, you get your check. If you want to take the people of University of Nairobi to go and have their conference there, they spend 100,000 or whatever, deduct that from the check. And progressively, that asset will turn to. That's my understanding. The government should. I'm not sure I even listened. I'll probably go for the bill.
Go ahead.
Just get a private sector. Give me a check at the end of the month. But I must bring in, I ensure that the farmers get paid on time. I must assure that they could invest in the technology. I'm not sure how the farmers will get in the technology, but if the farmers are growing because at the end of the day, it's a farmer growing the cane.
All right.
Then that is recoverable. The same old story, and Moridi is here. Adam Smith said, government has no business with business. Does it? And my feeling is, it's an animal we have been seeing in the days of Kidero.
Right, so because I have the report here from the 11th Parliament, and of course also the one from the Senate. We just want to compare some of the issues that are being raised here. If I may just read down what they're saying, especially on privatization.
11th Parliament?
Yeah, this was the 11th Parliament.
And now we're in the 19th of
Let me just, it's there on the screen. Now. So this was the Kenya National Assembly 11th Parliament, 3rd session 2015. Report of the Departmental Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Cooperatives on the crisis facing the sugar industry in Kenya. I'll just also highlight just some of this, especially on the privatization. Let me just head over there quickly, because this is not new.
Absolutely.
It's not new. And here they're saying on Article 27, all the 5 government-owned sugar factories are earmarked for privatization program. The program received cabinet approval in 2008.
Yes.
2008. And debt write-off has been approved by Parliament as a precursor to government divestiture. This aims at transforming the industry towards commercial orientation and injection of the required fresh capital from the private sector. However, the Parliamentary Departmental Committee on Finance, Planning and Trade passed a resolution on the 9th of January 2013 that privatization of the public sector sugar companies should be postponed until such a time when all legislations affecting the agricultural sector, that is sugar inclusive, and the county governments have been put in place in order to kick-start the privatization process. The approval of the Parliamentary Committee on Finance, Planning and Trade is required. So pending county...
How did Abkadio kick in? Abkadio was 2013?
No, Abkadio was not here.
No.
Yeah?
It was not in the
No, in the parastatus.
This was parastatus. This
Parastatal
is sugar.
reform.
So
This is sugar.
But it's among the parastatus, wasn't it?
No.
This is a different...
is only on sugar.
This is
sector.
on sugar.
Okay.
Yeah. So this, I wanted to know, especially on the county bit here, where has this been approved moving forward? It's not been approved.
No, you see,
So
there's an attempt, it has, since the revolution started, there's been an attempt to try and align all the existing legislation at national level with new legislation that county governments have been coming up with over the years. But I think it's also disingenuous for some of the legislators to suggest that we put on hold privatization of a national entity, because these are state corporations set up by national government, pending some county alignment between. I think these things always play out in Parliament, but at the end of the day, it is the national government that's pulling the strings on when they are not ready. And let me tell you first. Let me put these things in perspective. The sugar sector or the sugar business is something that any government in this part of the world would be very keen on, because sugar is money in this country, and because we cannot produce our entire requirements for consumption, and we have to import something. The politics around sugar is really so significant in this country, because sometimes some of these actions have been delayed deliberately to allow that import process to go on. Can you imagine a situation like that happening in coffee or tea? It won't. That government says, let us import some coffee or some tea or something similar. You cannot think about that. In fact, immediately any government comes in, the first thing they do is to have action immediately on how to improve the coffee and tea sector. Exactly. Like in this case, Gachagua was assigned that responsibility day one, work on the coffee and tea. But you will not see a situation where Mudavadi will be told, can you go, my friend, go sit there in your backyard and work on the sugar. Because the sugar is big business for the big boys. They don't want any attempt to revive these things. So there's a lot of politics. Even now, even the leaders from those areas, by the way, they are compromised sometimes to an extent where they cannot adequately play a significant role in revival of those things. So there's a lot of politics. So that report, I think, was well done. I remember that time.
And we'll tease at some of the things that were raised
from
all these millers as
correct.
well.
Very well done. But to get it implemented is where the roadblocks started coming in.
I think the operative word, and used it very well, is imports. That's it. We actually benefiting from those imports, and it's not you and I.
Sugar has the two big points that Senator has raised. Remember that this region, vote rich. So from a vote point of view, big question. And sugar is a big issue for raising money for individuals for political purposes. I see our host is surprised that 2008, forget 2008, go to 1996, for example, or 98 there, and you will still see
same thing,
similar reports in Parliament on the same issues. Now, so the political economy is what makes, the politics around it is what makes it impossible to make progress. Because on the one hand, big political, in the 90s and now, government issues import licenses to choice political cronies
for imports
to bring sugar, and as soon as we say, oh, you can bring it now duty free, by morning you'll hear that it was in high seas, the ship has docked in Kilindini. That process, because the issues are known, it's not that the issues are not known. You can, for example, if you take tea, sugar and coffee, you can see that the structural arrangements around tea seem to work. Yeah? And that's why tea has not collapsed in the same manner as coffee. So you would think, why don't we use those structural arrangements? So for instance, if you want to privatize Mumias, and I think that was that comment about waiting for counties to come, it was an attempt to say, the way tea is organized is that the smallholder farmers who own the factory that is processing that tea, how can we enable the sugarcane farmers to own those mills, so that even the privatization we're talking about is not just that flow, sell it to whoever. Now, but you will also see that because of 35 years, 40 years of political problems around sugar, many things have gone wrong. What is the yield per acre on the cane side? And you will find we are half where we were in the 80s. What you get, so the sugar development levy that was being used to improve, do research, improve varieties, blah, 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 it needs to come back. What is the sugar content in the cane that you harvest? So, and if I go back to production, why should Swaziland, Eswatini now, my apologies, why should the peasant farmer there be getting 105 tons while we are only getting 50? Yeah? Why should farmers here in Sudan? So the issues are the production side. What is the content, sugar content of
that is metric tons.
Metric tons, yes.
Yes, sir.
What is the sugar content of the cane that you grow? And that has to do with, again, cane varieties and so on. All those things, the improvement of which was stopped because there is no, the levy that was being used to improve them. When you come to the milling itself, and this is, I think, what Mumias and others had attempted to do, what are your products, including cogeneration and da-da-da-da-da. So,
the Sugar Development Board was reduced to simply giving letters for imports.
For import, exactly.
They are no longer concerned about sugar development. It's about the imports.
Yeah. So the main questions are around importation of sugar. And this is what happens. Within COMESA, every 2 or 3 years, we go to COMESA to ask that we postpone, because there was some liberalization expected within COMESA, we go to get an extension of the safeguard that allow us time before you can say COMESA sugar is duty-free into Kenya. Allow us time. And we've been asking for extensions for the last 25 years. That give us time to reform the sector, but ultimately, only a government able to tame the political questions around sugar will ever be able to reform the sector.
What happens is those...
Okay, before we come to Bunyasi Sakwa, if you may just go on with my also report, my director may just pick up this. Still on that, because I wanted just to compare this report and the task force that was being led by Nyang' Nyong'o as well. Evidence and submission from sugar companies and other witness. And first up, I think, was Western Development Initiative Association, WEDIA. And appearing before the committee on the 16th of October 2013, WEDIA made the following submissions. I'll spare the details. There says sugar poaching started about the year 2000 after the establishment of Butali sugar mills in Kakamega County. Sugar factories in Western Kenya, including Mumias Sugar, Nzoia Sugar Company, and Butali Sugar Mills, have signed contracts with their cane farmers except West Kenya Sugar Factory. To date, West Kenya Sugar Factory does not have any single contracted sugarcane farmer, but has since inception been buying cane from farmers contracted by other millers, hence promoting poaching. West Kenya Sugar Factory does not have cane development program for farmers, but harvest cane from farmers in Western Kenya. The factory has continued to buy cane from Busia Sugar Zone, contracted by Mumias Sugar Company, Nzoia Sugar Zone, and Butali Sugar Mills farmers, even when they, that is West Kenya, have no contracted farmers in those zones. West Kenya has gone ahead to construct a weighbridge at Tangakona area in Busia County, where all the poached cane is collected for transportation to the factory in Kakamega. And it goes on. The presence of weighbridge has led to disputes and conflict among the surrounding locals, communities, millers. At one point, tractors transporting sugar from Nzoia Sugar was burnt, and 6 tractors belonging to West Kenya impounded, and it goes on and on. So I wanted just to begin with that. Then we go to submissions also by Mumias Sugar. What are some of their highlights as well that they gave to the committee? And it says, Mumias, I'll just pick up on E, because the rest is just the details of the company. Signs cane farming contract with the farmers, committing them to supply their canes to Mumias Sugar Company to enable recovery of the company, of what the company has invested in the cane development expenses to the contracted farmers. There is no fair competition in the sugar sector, Mumias also put, and unless the emerging issues are addressed from both policy and legislative fronts, then the industry is headed for a collapse, as rightfully observed by the petitioners. There is urgent need to restore sanity and the rule of law in industry. Bunyasi Sakwa, I think that is operating within your zone as well when it comes to...
Yes, within the zone, within my home.
And the farmers have moved to court, so, especially with the farming zone for this...
yeah, I think there definitely a series of issues. Let's start with those agricultural side ones. And then we'll scale up. You know, when Mumias started, it was pretty well run in terms of its outreach program with the farmers. They incorporated at the end of the chain, and they worked seamlessly with the technical leadership from Mumias and so on. Things were done on the basis of some agreed agronomic or time calendar, and farmers did not have to get involved indirectly. You didn't have to bribe to get your cane cut or your fertilizer brought in if you're getting it from the factory. Things went well. That began to fray at the fringe, so that was a problem. Issues of transportation, there was farmers felt that the tonnages, when they pick up your cane in the field, you don't have to be there, you don't follow it, because they are supposed to carry it, get it weighed, and you simply get notification. They even advanced it later to a system where once it's on the weighing scale at the weigh bridge, the data was automatically communicated into the factory.
But they had issues with the weighbridge
transparency. Yeah.
They're not to be there to account.
Initially, it was all manual, and you had to get a representative there to watch it and so on. But later now, these are modern scales. They would pick up that weight, and the transparency improved. Later, I think there were human overrides that also, corrupted the system. Then inside the factory, there are issues around people trying. The Kenyan disease of trying to make margins wherever you are, People seem to be making margins on the maintenance costs and the spare parts. People made margins on the marketing margins and so on. Mumias had a case in which, for example, they had appointed a marketing agent in Dubai to sell some of their products internationally. And not only did he sell, did the company sell, but he also had accounts on the behalf of Mumias, which was a very suspicious effort. And they actually retained the forex earnings. So there are a whole host of things. And there were also some genuine debates on do you liberalize the harvesting? Does a sugar miller buy any cane that comes at their gate, or do you have to worry whether it was supported originally by somebody else? And those were difficult questions. They felt there were some specific companies that were interfering more than others and so on. So I think there's a whole slew of things just around management, the way I see it, such that if there was an honest process to try and sort these out, they could sort them out with the aim of giving the farmer the maximum pay on their land. Because if you don't, that's the goose that lays the golden egg. That was forgotten along the line.
Let me add.
Yeah, sure.
You see, I reading the report on the Butalis or Western Kenya Sugar Company and the way they are poaching. I think I think those members who that view I think is misplaced. Because there was a reason why farmers who have contracted with Mumias were delivering their cane to Western Kenyans or Butalis. It's the payment. I deliver cane, I don't get paid for 6 months, for a whole year. So why should I continue delivering to you?
Absolutely.
Never mind the contract.
Absolutely.
But I'm not getting paid. This public millers had collapsed.
But does it really play to the issue of zoning that you zone area? This is like my turf.
No, it doesn't. It
is Mumia's turf.
It's overtaken by events. You see, when the issue about the farmer. I have grown my cane. I need to sell it. I need money to pay my
And you
school
spend
fees.
some money to do that.
Yes, and I'm not getting paid. Why should I continue observing my... You are not keeping your side of the contract. Your side of the contract is you must pay me immediately I deliver.
That's true.
You are not paying me for a whole year. You are focusing on are you taking the cane to somebody else because I'm getting paid by that somebody else.
You don't have to go into any economics class.
So that report is misplaced on that aspect because they're not bringing out that side of things. That there's a reason why Mumias is next to me, but I'm taking my cane all the way to Western Kenya. The West Kenya company.
The bottom line. It is the bottom line.
Right.
Professor, before you just go on, I think the music is up. We need to take a station break. When we circle back, we shall, of course, continue delving deeper into this and a raft of other issues as well, and seeing what is the way forward. The country has been operating way below the given